Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Crompton. Casey first took Creative Shift in 2021, and I knew then just how much she enjoyed the course and how much it aligned with her way of working. So when she signed up again in 2022, it was a perfect opportunity for me to invite her to become a mentor on the course, and she's been a mentor ever since. Casey was a psychotherapist and clinical supervisor for over 30 years before becoming a full-time artist. And since then, she's opened her own gallery space and she shows her work both in local and national exhibitions. So today, I wanted to catch up with her about her own experience of the course, but also her perspective as a mentor, why she thinks this work's important, and also what she sees in artists who take Creative Shift. Hi, Casey. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Sally-Ann. It's a pleasure to be here as always and have this opportunity to talk with you. I'm really looking forward to our chat.
Brilliant. So I've just spoke there a bit about your Creative Shift journey, but for anybody who doesn't know you, would you just share a little bit about who you are and what you do and sort of where your practice is at today?
Okay, I'm a full-time artist and I've been on a journey really since I first started Creative Shift with you as a participant in 2021. But if I say where I am right now, I'm working full-time as an artist. We're in my home studio at the moment. I am exhibiting and attending art fairs. So my art practice has really changed dramatically since 2021. And alongside that, I have founded an art gallery that is now expanding into an art studio space. And this is a physical space in my town where I've established a community of artists. So a little bit of an in-person version of the sort of thing that you do in your art house. And I think embodies some of the values that we have in Creative Shift as well. So yes, I'm working full-time as an artist. I've developed my practice, which I'm sure we'll go into in more detail through the course of our conversation together. But that's where I am right now.
Okay, amazing. Thanks so much for that. So let's go right back to the beginning then, when we first met. So you first joined Creative Shift in 2021 in one of its earliest versions. Could you just tell us about what it was that attracted you to the course then, and what did your practice look like then?
So I was committed to an art practice then. I'd been working for about 18 months and I had done various courses in the sort of time leading up to Creative Shift that were very practical oriented. They were about how to paint, composition, colour, this sort of thing. And I had reached a point where I was starting to feel really sort of quite frustrated with what I was doing. I had sort of got techniques and things, but I didn't know what this was all about, and I was feeling very stuck and frustrated. And I had encountered you online through Instagram initially, and we'd had a couple of sort of conversations, and I actually popped into a gallery that you were exhibiting in at the time in the area where you live. I was with my sister. And we chatted, and at that time you said to me, "Oh, something's in the pipeline. Something's going to be happening soon." And I had a little bit of a conversation about that, and then I saw that the course being advertised. And obviously, this wasn't the first time, but it was new for me, and I had so loved your energy and how you are with people. So you're incredibly encouraging and supportive and knowledgeable, and you help people to push their boundaries, but in a way that feels very empathic and gentle. It's not a painful process. So I loved the energy of you. So those things coming together, those sort of how you work and what you were offering, was my way in. So it was, I think at the beginning, it was like, how can I feel like I'm moving forward? How can I break through this frustration? Even though at the time I sort of knew what it was about, but not clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we see that often with participants that come through Creative Shift, don't we? Lots of people have taken the courses, they know how, but then it's kind of like, what am I doing with all of this? Where is
Mm,
me in the work? And I
mm,
think we get to a point where we want it to mean a bit more. We want to understand what
mm,
we're doing a bit more, don't we?
mm.
Okay, so can you just share a little bit about what that first course was like for you and what you really took from it?
It was revelatory, really. Firstly, because of how you present, and it's not about how to paint; it's about who we are. So the content of the course felt really refreshing, and the the way that you guide things in a way that's not about imposing what an artist is, but it's about supporting people to discover who they are as an artist and what processes, what things from your experience can work in an overall creative practice that can support the manifestation of who you are as an artist in the physical outcome of a painting or a sculpture or I don't know, textiles, whatever it may be. So that was really refreshing. The the content is thought provoking, and I think you can go in at sort of different levels at different times, and it's something that can last for really a whole year. And it's something that you mentioned on the course. We're doing it this way because it's 12 weeks, but actually these are things that you can continue to reflect on throughout your life as an artist, actually. So the material and the focus was fantastic, and the opportunity within the community to actually have real dialogue and meaningful dialogue about the things that you were presenting, again, was very refreshing. So the sense of community, the way that you hold that, is very powerful. So I loved that. And I think what I got out of it that first time was the naming of the thing that had been frustrating me so clearly, which wasn't clear to me beforehand, but it became clear through the process, was this disconnection. That I was moving paint around, but I wasn't connected with what it was about for me. And that's where the meaning, the frustration was coming in. So I think the first significant shift was that permission to, as an artist, as a person, to really follow myself and what interests me and what I'm curious about, and to start to bring together what I felt like quite separate parts of myself. One of the things that you talk about is all sides of ourselves. Who are we? Our identity. That's where we start. And looking at all of that and then seeing, what's not there in the art practice was really illuminating. So it was the permission really to be curious about that and start to name it and start to understand where the frustration was coming from. It's
Yeah,
liberating.
it's so interesting to hear you say that because I think, the naming it, because we don't always know why we're feeling frustrated, do
Mm,
we? There's just something,
mm,
like you say, now you say it's that connection, it feels obvious, but at the
mm.
time it can feel like, can show up in all sorts of ways, can't it? Just feeling that stuckness, just feeling not very inspired by, avoiding your studio.
Resistance,
Resistance. Yeah.
resistance to the work, resistance to exploring what it's about or putting your work wherever it shows up. And of course, the awareness that I got was personal to me, and other people will get their own insights.
Yeah.
But that was the most important for me, I think, in that first that first course, and permission, I think, is a big aspect of that. And I see that in other participants, whatever the permission is around, it is permission.
Yes.
It is allowing something else to emerge from the stuckness.
Okay, so you had a great first shift in 2021. What made you want to come back in 2022?
I realized I was still on a journey, and I think with this sort of learning and exploration, you can always go deeper. And I enjoyed the experience of doing that in a contained space and a devoted space to that, where there was a structure to it. And I'd realized that there was more. So I wanted to go into the more and to move from the awareness to a deeper exploration of that and understanding of that. So yeah, the first was giving permission to go where I'm curious. The second time was, okay, let me take that a little bit further within a supportive community. Yeah, it was nice to not have to do it completely on my own.
Yes, yeah, and like you say, it is nice just to be gently guided through the steps of like, oh, have you thought about this, or what about this, and what about this? All those elements that make up our practice. Okay, so I actually invited you then in 2022 to become a mentor on the course, which obviously you've been a mentor ever since. But just going back to your personal practice, so what happened then from 2022 up to now? So I can see your beautiful paintings behind you. So how did you get here from there?
Well, through the explorations and sort of having a framework to be able to explore things and to think about things, it was a real catalyst, really. And what emerged for me gradually was an awareness that because of the sorts of courses I'd been doing, which were my return to an art practice, I'd retired I'd worked as a psychotherapist for 30 years, working with survivors of trauma, and had done a foundation in art course in my 30s, and then various other sort of smaller courses throughout those 30 years. But on retiring, I wanted to give more space to the creative side of myself. So I'd done very practical courses, and they had all had an abstract focus. And I'd realised over the last few years that I'd been boxing myself into defining what sort of artist I was before I'd really done the thinking process about what was important to me. And one of the things, it's one of the things that I think Creative Shift does is it brings you back to yourself as a creative person. It's not about how to paint or, how to do things. It's why. It's who am I as an artist? What am I curious about? What's nudging me? What do I want to explore? All these sort of questions, not am I doing the right thing, but is this right for me? So that sort of framing, that introspection allowed me, and again, we look at, in the mind mapping, we look at who we are, the sort of sense of identity. I'd realised actually that the things that were important to me about being in relationship, the emotional connection, the importance of women in my life. I'm one of 5 daughters. As I say, I've worked with women who have been through really difficult circumstances and have transformed their lives in working with me to flourish and become bigger, to take up more space. And my own experience as a woman, with my own life experiences and difficulty of being a woman in this world and in the body of a woman, I gradually allowed myself to break through the restrictions that I've been having about what sort of artist I was, to I need to bring the body back, and I need to bring woman back, in a big way, that she can take up space, that she can feel larger than life. And some of these works are sort of in smaller canvases, some are bigger, but even on the smaller ones, I want them to feel that sense of taking up space, but also with all the vulnerabilities and awkwardness that we can still have as women, being in our own bodies. We don't always see them as they truly are. So it's that sort of exploration, that breakthrough of I need to challenge my own assumptions about who I am and how I work. Another big awareness through introspection on the course that on Creative Shift has been the awareness of how my aphantasia affects how I work. And for those people that don't know, aphantasia is it's where you don't have any internal visual imagery or visual recall, in the sense of having pictures or a solid sense of an image in your own mind's eye. So that when we think about materials and processes, that really helped to sort of free up that I can do this in my own way, which is, even if I'm working from an image, I do life drawing, or I see myself or others holding their body in a particular way, and I'm wanting to paint that. I might have an image, but even looking away from it, I can't remember it. So I have to sort of rediscover the image on the canvas. So it goes through many iterations, and some parts are missing. So some are clearly defined, because that's sort of how I hold the world, or I have to actually physically get into the position of the pose or that I'm working with, so that I can feel it in my body.
Oh,
and then try and translate that. So that's a very sort of exciting process, and that's all come through this reflection process. How I work is valid. The things that I'm interested in are valid. How can my processes support what I'm seeking to communicate? So that's quite an amazing shift, really, over the 5 years, from quite abstract mark making. I would essentially say it was mark making rather than expressing myself, in a connected way to all of who I am.
But like you say, and a pretty big shift. But how amazing that now you can talk about this, and these paintings behind you, you have such a close connection to them, and you could tell us every inch about the meaning of it, and because you've done all of this work, and I think on that, I mean, you've just explained it all, really. But why do you think, for artists in general, I mean, this is really important for you, obviously, because this was your curiosity, but why do you think in general this kind of work is important for artists?
Yeah, I think it is wider than just myself, and I see it in Creative Shift. I see it in my art community, where people move from the initial sort of excitement about painting again, or being at the start of something, to really wanting to sort of work in a way that's uniquely them and honest to who they are. And that's not about technique. You don't find that on a course that's about how, a teacher, a facilitator showing you how they work. It comes from that sort of exploration of yourself and what's important to you, and what you're wanting to express and how. And I don't, it's not that it has to be like huge meta meanings. You don't have to change the world. I think it's more about understanding, you know, what's important to you, in your world. What are you connecting with? If you're, you know, connecting with the landscape, what aspect of the landscape really moves you? I remember one year we had someone where a big aha moment from them was, it wasn't the visual of the landscape that meant something to her. It was the feeling of being in the landscape. That, you know, it might be the wildness in the air or the heat of the day. You know, there's the felt sense that she was wanting to communicate rather than a representation. That was huge. That's a huge aha. So I think it's about both big changes. It can be like, I think, like Louise Fletcher shared with you, that really coming back to this process on creative shift opened up for her how much more she wanted to be connected to who she was, and the sort of connections that she made that has led to sort of a direction. A bit like myself, she's sort of saying, I don't want to be confined by who I thought I was. I need to be able to incorporate all of myself. So that's someone who's at a stage where they're really quite established in their career. But it can also be sort of people at other stages where, you know, finding the meaning can be, as I say, understanding what the landscape means to you, or why you're attracted to it, or, you know, understanding why you're noticing certain things. It can be finding meaning in your studio practice and the rhythm of it and how that supports you. So it can be from things like, my art practice is really meaningful to me, but I don't give it priority and time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So you know, we're inviting people to ask questions about, so okay, what's happening there? That's part of where you're stuck. What else do we need to look at? And the reflection is more about, so how is this happening? What else would be possible? One of the things you often say is, you know, what else is possible here? You know, what's in our outer field? So it's important because it's sort of big identity things, but it's also the smaller moments in our practice at whatever stage we're at.
Yeah. And just, I think on a really light level, it's just to make things more enjoyable in your studio practice, isn't it? It's like we don't have to wrestle with this.
No.
Yeah. And you can, like you say, you can access it at different points, and it could just be, you know, I remember the days just wanting to avoid my studio just because things were so unclear in there. But as soon as you've got a few like practical steps that you can tap into, whether that's just organizing how you work, you know, if you're tripping up over yourself all the time. And then, so it's like, organizing the basics through to kind of concepts that both you, yourself and Louise have spoke about. And it's like where you want to go as artists. And we just have this, it's such a sliding scale, isn't it, of how you can access these points. I think as well, what we've noticed in more recent years is how many alumni we see coming back through the course. And you touched on it then when you spoke about your reason for coming back in 2022. It was like you first came and you were like, right, okay, this is new and I've got permission. And then you come back and you want to, you know, go a little bit deeper each time. And what I've noticed in people that are coming back is that they often arrive with a different question the next year because you've kind of come through and whatever's come up for you that certain year is that, and then you go off again into your own practice and you have a year. And I feel like creative shift has become this kind of annual reset almost. Like it's definitely the way I see it for my own practice, and I see in the year how much I've moved on, and then oh, I'm here now, you know. And I think it's that layering process, isn't it? That we do naturally get deeper if you're a practicing artist, and yeah, just noticing. And again, you can access that on a lighter level, like what shapes am I looking at this year? How has my palette shifted this year? What does that mean for me? You know, so they don't have to be. I think you often speak about this like zooming in and zooming out idea, and I think we can do that with every aspect of this, can't we?
And I was smiling when you said about the lighter aspects, because literally the other day, I mean, this comes to, for me, creative shift, you know, being a mentor isn't located just in 12 weeks. I've done it now, tick, off I go. It's part of the rhythm of my process. And the sense of the level that you can connect with when one of the things you talk about is allowing people to sort of like, you know, pause, you know, when do you need to pause, and what can happen in a pause. And one of the things for me is about being able to be in flow and aware of my frustrations. And I'm an oil painter, so my my tubes of paint get all funky like this, and then I can't find the color again, because all the tubes just end up looking the same. And I had been feeling just recently like I'm spending my life looking for this tube of paint. Where did I just put it down? And I've pause, step away, sit, reflect. And actually, the tubes of paint that I get come in boxes with the color labels on them. Simple thing, keep them in the boxes. Why am I putting the boxes in recycling? And you can see that they're all lined up now, so I can read them. It's releasing. So it is those sort of very I don't know, sort of intimate moments about how we work and what can keep us stuck or frustrated or lost in the moment. And there's going to be a solution. It's what's possible in this is just keep it in the box. Don't put the box in recycling. Keep it, order it. And my life is so much calmer.
I was going to say that for how small that is, that's life changing for you in the studio.
Yes.
And it's things in the course, I know, particularly on our materials and processes week, and particularly around processes, I'm always saying, like, notice when you trip yourself up, notice when you're becoming frustrated, you know, because otherwise I think we can, you know what it's like when we're in our studio, you're just working, so into your process. And I think part of it is trying to remember to stay present and mindful so that you can catch your frustrations. And like you say, there will be a solution, but it's up to us as artists to try and shine a light on each of those elements to think, is this working for me? Could it make my life easier? You know, and I think that's what Creative Shift is brilliant at, of shining that light on every area of a practice.
And it invites you, I think, because there's something about very often if you're in transition or you're doing a new way of working, then processes that have worked before may not work now. So, you know, originally I was working in acrylics, and I have studio envy for people who work in acrylics, because somehow the pots and things don't seem to get quite as messy. Once I moved to oils, I hadn't encountered that before, you know, realizing how using these materials is going to change how I work. Every time we do something new as an artist, we almost have to come back to not just the big things as we've been saying, but
it's like the foundational level, isn't it?
The frameworks, the things that support that expression. We have to come back again, and that's very often where we can feel lost, where there's change happening, or we're on the cusp of change because it's uncomfortable. And we don't know what's going to happen. So
It's like for
Yeah,
how reflective we speak about the course, it's actually just full of really practical
yeah,
tools. Like they are your foundations, they are the things that underpin all of this other stuff. And so, although we spend time thinking and mulling things over and kind of trying to look at that without being practical, I think, and especially actually as the course has developed, we are much more hands-on now, much more practical in that sense. But yeah, the tools are the things that are going to get you through your everyday and be
yeah,
able to build on them. So
yeah.
yeah.
There is a structure and a framework, and I really enjoy that. And I think it's fundamental because, as you just said, we're going from sort of big ideas and where we feel like we want to go, and then we have to have that you call it a toolbox. Some things that are actually quite concrete
Yeah.
ways of approaching and thinking and doing that allow that to happen. So it feels very empowering. It's not that you're being invited to reflect and then you go away with your reflections and nothing to hang it on. Actually, there's a lot of support about how to progress, and I think some people can find, some people, not everybody. It can feel a challenge, at the beginning to think about who are we,
Mm.
and why am I doing this and so on. But the experience that I have of working with participants on the course and the way that you work is that although that can feel oof, at the beginning a little bit because we're there because we don't know and we're being asked to reflect on who we are as
Yeah.
artists. Being with that sense of not quite knowing can feel uncomfortable in that sense. It's not painful. It's just it can feel challenging, but it makes sense as things go on because that's the core of everything else that happens. So having a framework without who you are
Yes.
doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
It doesn't make sense. You're right. Because
Yeah.
even in that first week, yeah, like, yeah, who you are, how you see yourself, what are you into, what really
Yeah.
like makes you tick. And I think
Yeah.
the more we can uncover, the
Mm,
it's like, yeah, the painting is not just about a landscape painting because it looks
mm,
like a pretty landscape painting. It's like, what's in here? And you mentioned it
mm,
before. It's like, how do I want that to feel? How do I feel in the landscape? What do I notice about the landscape?
mm,
And the more we can uncover that about ourselves, the more
mm,
that work is going to be
mm,
so, and I
mm,
think we just keep, it's a work in progress, isn't it? We keep working
mm,
towards that. And I think that's
yeah.
why these like anchor points that we give, these tools, you can just return to them then whenever you're,
Mm,
like you say, whenever you're feeling a bit, oh, that feels a bit out of sync,
mm,
what can I
mm,
look for, hopefully one of those tools
mm,
on creative shift.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's marvelous about being in Creative Shift on I've had the privilege of being over these years is, this is not about being the perfect artist or having the perfect art practice. It's about having the tools and resources and knowing the questions to ask when you get lost, because I think all artists get lost, and no one knows always quite what they're doing, and nor should we, otherwise we've stopped.
Yeah.
So that sense of ever expanding,
Yeah.
and having the resources to be able to come back to yourself with the knowing the questions
Yeah.
to ask yourself is really, really helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked there about being a mentor on the course. Could
Hmm.
you just share with us a bit more about that? What's it like? What is your experience like on the course? So when you're a mentor, what do you sense and what do you see from our participants?
I guess if I sort of like think about the sort of journey that people take, I think, coming in, there's excitement and there's nervousness, as there often is when you're doing something new, or you're hopeful, you're wanting the change to happen, but you don't know quite what it's going to look like. And so there's coming in with that, and then there's the sense of sort of settling down. And what I see is a gradual move from, and I think it's because of how the course is structured, a move from sort of an external way of thinking to really bringing it into themselves and what's possible for themselves, and valuing everybody's view, because it's them and their artistic expression, so it's valid. So I see the move from the excitement, the nervousness, the what am I doing when I'm here and I don't know, what is it like to not know, which again is all part of a change process. To start to sort of embed those aspects we've just been talking about who they are into various aspects of a creative practice. So starting to see the creative practice as a whole experience, and then moving towards as we come towards the end of the course, where then there's the opportunity to really to start to build their own framework, to there's structures in there. We talk about artist bill of rights, so their rights to be who they are, their value system, how they can enact things. So it's a real journey from nervousness, not knowing, to okay, these are things that can support me, to okay, this is the framework that I can start to put in place for myself, with the knowledge that this is going to continue.
Yes,
because I think we're very clear that this is an introduction, and that the work continues. This is you're not coming out as a finished product. You're coming out someone who feels more grounded in who they are, more able to feel resourceful in exploring who they are and how they work, and then doing it, actioning it. So.
Like they've had a good look around at all the parts of them, all the parts of their creative practice. And then I think it's the opportunity to which do I want to dive into more first? Because this is lifelong, if you're a practicing artist, and it certainly is for me, and each year, or it might be a different area of focus. And then, and things take time, don't they? And that's actually why I'm on that point. I think one of the things I found really interesting about your journey, and particularly last year, I think, I just want to talk about how we see things as sometimes we want quick fixes and quick wins. And like you've just said, creative shift is kind of an introduction into all of those different areas. And then we go off and explore whatever we want to. And I know when you were having this big shift in your work, one of your shift words was mastery. And can you just tell us a little bit about that and how you saw that? Because the timeline for me was the interesting part of this. And you took, this is serious stuff, you really wanted to change your work. And so it's not just, oh, I'll go and do that, and oh, now I'm disappointed with results. Can you just tell us about how you set up that vision for yourself?
Yeah, it was, as I said, the awareness had come in that I wanted to shift direction, and I felt that I wanted to give that a respectful, honouring space. We live in a world, I think, where there's this sense of immediacy. We have Instagram where people are posting every day, and something new is happening, or there's the appearance of that. So I'm very aware of that sort of pressure for outcome. And so the mastery was about giving myself time to really explore my idea, to understand it, to master my process. I don't think I'll ever do that. I think mastery will always be with me. But it's also about, I suppose mastery is also about working with my own, my own sense of limitations, or my own judgments that can come in. We all are susceptible to feeling more critical of ourselves or more doubtful whenever we're starting something new. So it was also about having space and time to really understand what I was doing and respect it, honour it for its development. So I gave myself 2 years, and I suppose I'm just under a year. In September, I'll be more or less a year into this exploration, and I'm loving it. I'm very excited about my work. I'm learning lots of things. Each painting is informing the next. The connection is developing because I start a painting and it might start with how the body's been held somehow, and I'm expressing it, and then the woman in front of me becomes her own person. This is like weird, I know. Um, but then it's like, oh, this is who you want to become. So this is what you're about. And then I'm in dialogue. So that's exciting and surprising, because that means that the emotion of the work is there, because I'm sort of feeling what this woman, this body is saying, really, and then finding a way to express that. So I don't know if I've lost the question, but yeah, that sense of really giving it time is very important. So it's almost like creative shift is a little incubator. And then off we go and develop, So it's like giving birth to something, it takes time. You hold it in your body, you bring it into the world, and then you nourish and nurture and give it the conditions, to flourish and be what it is in the world, without controlling it.
Well, I think that's why I loved hearing you last year talk about that, because, and definitely what sits with my values and the way I've developed Creative Shift, it's not a quick fix. This is like deep and meaningful work. And the reason we do that is so that it sustains us as artists. I mean, we can, obviously there's a time and a place for learning new techniques, and we might get a quick result, and when we go through different materials and things, but the whole way is like moving us towards something that hopefully is more meaningful, because then it shows in our work, it shows in us when we have that connection. And I think I just really, when you said that last year, because for those probably just heard me mention shift words, we do a lot about trying to find and align with words in the beginning, and they kind of sustain us through the course. But yeah, that was kind of what I was interested in hearing. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so as we kind of think about wrapping up, if there's anybody watching this and they are not sure about Creative Shift this year, is there anything that you think they should know?
I think I'm going to echo your interview with Louise here, which is, if you are wanting a how-to paint course, this isn't for you. And I'd hate for anyone to be disappointed in their expectations of, sort of getting practical techniques about painting itself. What you get lots of is amazing sort of thought-provoking exercises that get you to explore your own practice and how to develop it. So there are hands-on things to do, but it's just not how to learn this technique of drip painting or something like that. So I would say if you're ready to have aha moments, and I think one of the things that I see, the breakthroughs and struggles of participants on the course, the huge moment at whatever point their awareness shifts, which could be any week on the course, is that that awareness of I'm starting to know who I am. I have a right to follow my own interests, my own curiosities. I have agency and control about how this goes, and that just really opens up things for
Yeah.
people. So I think if you're wanting to really feel like an active participant in the whole sense in your art practice, and you're wanting to move through stuckness or feeling lost, or you're making change, or you've got, sort of, one of the things we notice is people might have life transitions going on and it's impacting their practice in some way. And they need to try and hold on to a sense of who they are also through that. I think if you're ready for the excitement and nervousness that comes with moving towards change and feeling grounded and more powerful, more coherent, more honest in your art practice, then I think this is for you.
Creative shifts for you this year.
Yes, yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely place to finish. But yeah, before we go, I just wanted to obviously thank you for being a mentor every year since 2021. And yeah, I can't wait to see you again on this year's course, and hopefully it'll be a lot of fun for us. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited for what this year is going to bring and the amazing people that we'll meet on the journey.
Yeah. All
Thank you,
right,
Sally
Casey.
Ann.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye. Bye bye.
Bye.